What if the next time you opened your door, you found more than just an unexpected visitor? What if that instant led to an awakening, a testament to resilience, empathy, and the interconnectedness of lives? On a warm spring afternoon, the Johnson family found themselves in the heart of their suburban haven, blissfully blissful in a bubble of domestic tranquility. The laughter of children bounced off their walls, while the aroma of a freshly baked pie wafted through the air like a warm hug, wrapping them in moments of joy. It was an ordinary day, punctuated with the kind of charm that made life feel like a gentle lullaby. Little did they know their lives were about to be overturned. Suddenly, a soft, disoriented whimper broke through the idyllic reverie, slicing through their bubble like a hot knife through butter. Puzzled, the family turned towards the front door, where shadows danced in the daylight. What stood before them was pure revelation: a scruffy dog, his fur matted and dirty, trembling as if caught between fear and hope. The creature's wide eyes reflected unfathomable desperation, begging for help in every subtle quiver. As the children pressed their noses against the glass, their parents instinctively opened the door, revealing the heart-wrenching vulnerability of this lost soul. In that solid wooden frame, the family saw more than just a dog. They saw a reflection of the struggle inherent in life itself. The scene unfolded like the early chapters of an emotional novel, full of promise and foreboding, urging them to lean into the unknown. Buddy, as the dog would later be called, stumbled forward, collapsing with relief onto the welcome mat. His bones were frail, his coat dull, a physical manifestation of neglect that sent shockwaves through the human hearts witnessing his plight. This moment was not just a plea for food or shelter. It was an invitation to engage with the mystery of life's interconnected threads. In a psychological context, this experience echoed the principles of altruism, a form of selfless concern for the well-being of others. Social psychology studies illuminate how our innate drive to help not only defines our humanity, but offers profound insights into our interconnectedness. The Johnson family instinctively recognized this urge. They felt the gravity of Buddy's vulnerability, calling forth their capacity for empathy, urging them to act. As the father bent down, his heart swelling with compassion, the mother followed suit. "Oh, poor thing," she murmured, her voice radiating warmth as she stroked Buddy's head. In that tender moment, a magnetic bond began to form. Buddy blinked up at them, wide-eyed and grateful, as if understanding that he had stumbled into more than a shelter. He had found a sanctuary. However, the fleeting joy of this encounter was soon met with a storm brewing in the shadows. Fear mingled with curiosity as a flicker of concern seeped into their hearts. Where had Buddy come from? Who could abandon a dog so helpless, so full of longing? These questions hung in the air like smoke from a dying candle, intertwining with the very fabric of their emotional landscape. In an eerily prophetic moment, the family soon learned that their sanctuary would soon become a battleground of conflicting emotions, spearheaded by an unexpected visitor, an old man, hunched and weary, knocking desperately at their door. With trembling hands and a voice laden with regret, he held out a faded photograph of Buddy. "I've been looking for him everywhere," the man stammered, panic gripping his words. "He ran away last week during a storm." In that electrifying moment, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew thick with tension as the juxtaposition of love and loss unfolded before them like a tragic play. The old man was not merely a stranger. He was a living reminder of the complexity of devotion and abandonment. He stood there, eyes red and wet, etching the pain of losing a cherished companion into the hearts of the Johnsons. As their gazes collided, an unscripted emotional symphony emerged. Buddy, sensing the seismic shift, lay still, caught between the faces of his past and the embrace of his present. The family felt themselves teetering on an emotional precipice. They had opened their home to this dog, a momentary act of kindness, igniting a fire of moral conflict within them. Was love meant to span ownership? Were they, in their quest for compassion, extending a lifeline to someone in pain, or were they unwittingly pulling Buddy back into a storm? Rewind for a moment. Imagine the complexities we face when confronting the messiness of love. The Johnsons knew the warmth of a shared connection, but they were also struggling against the weight of another person's sorrow. In this emotionally charged environment, the conflicting dynamics echoed a psychological concept known as cognitive dissonance, where conflicting values lead to discomfort and demand resolution. Buddy glanced between the family and the man, and emotions swirled within him, yet created an invigorating chill. He sensed familiarity in the old man, a ghost from his past, tethering him to memories of warmth and companionship. But looking back at the Johnsons, he felt alive. He felt seen. It was a powerful, visceral experience as he wore both dread and anticipation, awakening his inner conflict. In the unfolding drama, the family exchanged silent glances, wrestling with their desire to nurture Buddy while grappling with the reality of relinquishing him to the past. It was an intricate dance of compassion. It embodied the complex human nature that thrives on connection, yet oftentimes yearns for clear lines of ownership and loyalty. As their hearts laid bare on the table, the mother took a small step forward. "We can talk about this. Maybe there's a way we can share him." Her voice resonated softly, but it held the weight of hope. She was hoping to bridge the chasm of conflict with understanding, giving voice to the collective yearning for connection. But the door to acceptance was not easily opened. The old man stood rigid, a fortress of doubt, enclosing the tenderness that craved release. He hesitated, the words caught in his throat, a crescendo of conflicting emotions brewing behind his eyes. "But he's my dog," he finally managed, shattered pieces of grief and guilt threading through his voice. The children felt their hearts twist. They didn't just see a lost dog, they witnessed a struggle unfolding, a family torn apart, haunted by the ghosts of their past. The father interjected gently, "We understand the bond you share with him, but think about Buddy's happiness." There was an urgency in his voice, a desperate plea for shared understanding. Each family member felt the moment's weight, hovering between the fear of loss and the possibility of growth. It became more and more evident that this was less about Buddy and more about a convergence of lives, an intermingling of sorrows and joys formed by a shared experience. Psychological studies have long demonstrated that our capacity for empathy often peaks in moments of vulnerability. The very act of witnessing another's pain invites us to reflect on our own, the shared threads of humanity stretching taut across their hearts. As Buddy lay between the man and the family, it was clear to everyone that he had made his choice. He began to lean into the Johnsons, ears perked and tail gently thumping against the floor, a tender dance of trust beginning to take hold. Buddy felt it. He found solace in their warmth, surrendering to the possibility that love could be abundant, that it could stretch far beyond simple ownership. But just as the family began to feel buoyed by the tides of hope, an urgent howl pierced the air, the kind of sound that signals something far graver than mere abandonment. It echoed from Buddy's core, a visceral response against the unfolding chaos. This howl was a metaphorical clarion call, wedded by the reality that no relationship is devoid of complexity. It resonated with the old man, the family, and even the dog, underscoring the potent concoction of loyalty, sorrow, and transformation. The children's eyes widened, realizing that the resolution was just a breath away, but their hearts bloomed with uncertainty. What happens next would not spell closure, but rather a plunge into uncharted waters, where the lines between belonging and letting go would fray, opening the stage for what it truly means to love against the backdrop of life's relentless currents. The night had barely begun, but the winds of change had already begun to stir. They all stood united in the kitchen, the weight of their collective existence hanging in the air. Would the echoes of the past swallow their chance at renewal? Or could they rise above the murky waters threatening to drown their budding connection? As the stories unfolded in the dim light, the greatest question loomed large, pulsating with urgency. Would they emerge transformed? Or would the answer to this emotional labyrinth lie beyond their grasp, leaving them stranded forever in the unknown? All they could do was wonder as the night deepened, taking them further into the heart-wrenching moment waiting just beyond the horizon. What if the moment you thought you were making a simple decision unraveled a deeper mystery? exposing not just the plight of a lost dog, but truths about loyalty, love, and the power of connection. As the wind howled outside, carrying the scent of an impending storm, an electric atmosphere hung in the Johnson home. They stood frozen, eyes darting between Buddy and the old man who had appeared on their doorstep, each heartbeat amplifying their uncertainty. The boy clutched his sister's hand tightly, as if anchoring himself in innocence amidst the rising tide of emotions. The question lingered like a heavy fog. Who would ultimately decide Buddy's fate? The air grew thick with tension as the old man swallowed hard, wrestling with his own fears of abandonment. But here he stood, the embodiment of loss, staring into the eyes of a family offering him a love he feared he could not provide. It was heartbreaking and enlightening, bravely exposed for all to see. Little did they know, there was a transformative power waiting just beneath the surface. Psychologists often talk about the power of a moment, the way pivotal experiences can shift one's life trajectory. Even small acts of kindness can create ripples that impact not just those involved, but also expand outward to touch lives in unseen ways. The Johnsons had ventured out of the comforts of their own lives to take in Buddy, yet now found themselves at a crossroads. They had the chance to extend their compassion further, offering space for the old man to find solace and healing amidst his grief. In that moment, the mother stepped forward, her voice steady, yet laced with vulnerability. "What if we all worked together?" Her words resonated like a gentle balm, smoothing the jagged edges of uncertainty that plagued them all. This was not merely about reclaiming a pet, it was an opportunity for healing, an experiment in collective empathy that could bind their lives in ways they had yet to fathom. Emotion flickered across the old man's face as he processed her proposal. The very notion of sharing Buddy unfolded like the petals of a blooming flower, unveiling rich layers of possibility. They were no longer adversaries in a tug-of-war over ownership. They had become allies, united in love for a creature who had only known loneliness and loss. This was the essence of community, a powerful shift toward understanding. But as the warmth of hope permeated the room, a visceral noise broke their reverie. A deep growl emanated from Buddy, electrifying the tension back to reality. This was a different kind of sound. It hinted at an underlying fear that had festered deep within him, a reminder of the turbulent journey that led him to this moment. The dog, still caught in the web of his past, reacted instinctively, sensing the emotions swirling in the room, uncertainty igniting the shadows beneath his scruffy fur. As an enveloping silence fell, the father knelt down, meeting Buddy at eye level. "Hey, Buddy," he said, his voice soft but confident. "You're safe here." To Buddy, it was an anchor in the storm, a gentle invitation to choose trust over fear. Their eyes locked like two souls revealing the depth of their stories, a primal connection pressed against the fragile boundary of language. The story of Buddy was not an isolated one. It echoed centuries of human experience. According to sociologists, human-animal relationships have evolved over thousands of years. Companionship with dogs has roots in protecting against threats, providing comfort and offering unconditional love. In this moment, it became palpably clear, Buddy was not merely an animal. He was a vessel of connection between the past and the present, a living testament to the unyielding bond of loyalty. Yet, as the father offered solace to Buddy, the old man stood witness, grappling with a cascade of emotions, regret, longing, and a flicker of hope. "I never meant to neglect him," he declared, raw honesty cutting through the tension. "I lost my job, and it all spiraled from there." The vulnerability of his confession landed heavily within the room, reminding everyone that life often dishes out challenges that leave us feeling powerless and alone. Transitional moments like these shed light on social psychology concepts like the fundamental attribution error, which suggests that we often attribute others' actions to their character rather than their circumstances. The family had viewed the old man as the villain in this tale, but his admission revealed the multifaceted nature of his struggles. Empathy flooded the room, weaving strands of connection tighter than any public perception of failure could. Buddy stood at the center of this emotional tempest, caught in an unsteady limbo. The boy reached out, tentatively placing his hand on the dog's head, offering not just comfort, but a bridge of hope. Their eyes met once more, innocence merging with the depth of experience. While humans often erect walls to protect themselves, the child's gesture of love stripped the scene of pretense, revealing the deceptively simple truth. Love can forge paths where only despair existed before. As the ordeal continued, Buddy's body relaxed beneath the boy's gentle touch. A wave of calm washed over him, and for the first time he seemed to begin to understand that not all humans were to be feared. It was a revelation, a moment of liberation that allowed him to see the complexities of family, loss, and love circling each other like dancers in an intimate waltz. Each heartbeat pulsed with promise, from the boy, the father, the mother, and even the old man, who began to exude a warmth previously shrouded in sadness. Yet, in the backdrop of this burgeoning connection, doubt still clung like mist in the air. The mother questioned aloud, her voice soft but laced with concern. This was a question that haunted them all, the fear that the love they attempted to craft might still slip through their fingers like sand. But as they exchanged glances, the old man drew a deep breath, ready to confront his past mistakes head-on. "I can help," he said resolutely, an ember of determination sparking in his heart. "If I can come by and walk him, we can create a schedule." In that moment, an invisible thread began to weave through the room, a pact brought together by mutual healing. Each person held a piece of the puzzle, adding intentions of mindfulness to the canvas of their new relationship. Indeed, love is not linear. It is layered and multifaceted, sturdy enough to adapt as life unfurls its chaos. A deep understanding settled over them, the realization that Buddy could have a family composed of more than just one household. In a world where boundaries often dictate relationships, they were stepping forward to embrace the notion that love is expansive, and the joy of connection could watch over Buddy as he navigated his journey from abandonment to belonging. As the night unfolded, laughter and gentle conversations filled the Johnson home. Buddy lay peacefully with his head resting on the boy's feet, safe and unaware of the sacred space burgeoning around him. The dark clouds that once loomed over this circumstance began to recede, letting flickers of hope shine through like the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. But just as the flicker of joy began to spread warmth, transforming the comfort of their newfound family dynamic, tragedy struck. A loud crash erupted from the direction of the kitchen, drawing every pair of eyes toward the source. In the ensuing chaos, the tiled floor turned into a whirlpool of startled footsteps and panicked breaths. With a sudden jolt, the old man's face drained of color. "No!" he shouted, feeling the last remnants of his emotions teetering on the edge. He had forgotten the food left out, his grip on the past slipping once again, driven by the urgency to protect what he had almost lost. In a whirlwind of heartache and adrenaline, the moment took a shocking turn. Again, Buddy's instinct to flee kicked in. He bolted to the doorway as if summoning every ounce of energy to escape the confusion closing in around him. The family fell silent, the world around them closing in like a cruel mirror, reflecting their worst fears. Would Buddy run away yet again? Would their fragile moment of hope crumble beneath the weight of miscommunication and chaos? The flickering embers of newfound love hung precariously in the balance, ready to ignite into flames or extinguish beneath the burden of mishap. What would happen next as they grappled with the maelstrom of emotions colliding inside? Would this moment of chaos seal Buddy's fate for good? Or could they find a way to breathe life back into the lessons learned, illuminating the path toward transformation once more? The night stretched out before them, fraught with uncertainty, and the question resonated painfully. Can we mend what once seemed irreparable, even as shadows of the past continue to loom? What do you do when a stranger stands at your door, begging not just for help, but for a second chance at life? This moment can shape not only the fate of a helpless being, but also the hearts and minds of those who choose to engage or walk away. As the storm grew louder outside, the Johnson family found themselves enveloped in a whirlwind of uncertainty and fear. Their minds were racing, grappling with the consequences of their decisions. Buddy, the scruffy dog they had taken in, had ignited something within them, a desire to help, but also the fear of the unknown. The old man's abrupt entry into this newly formed circle of love was as shocking as thunder in the night sky. He had been standing at the threshold, his very presence a testament to choices made and paths taken that led to this moment of reckoning. Buddy, who moments ago lay comfortably beside the boy, suddenly bolted towards the door, embodying the instinctual flight response that animals possess when faced with chaos. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the kitchen, a reminder that not all chaos can be confined to silence. The old man's eyes widened with desperation as he bore witness to his own mistakes weighing heavily on him. Doubt, regret, yearning, all swirling around him. He shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. In a heartbeat, the drama shifted. In their minds, the question lingered. Would this disturb the fragile connection they had just begun to forge? Boy's heart raced as he watched Buddy's silhouette dart between the doorframes, caught between the familiar tug of the past and the magnetic pull of a hopeful future. In moments like these, we discover how fear and love intertwine, often leading us in directions we never anticipated. Social psychologists observe that our instinctual responses are often driven more by fear than by reason. The reactions of the dog and the old man were a testament to that truth. All they had known, be it love or loss, guided their every move. As Buddy skidded to a halt on the porch, the wind whipped past him, wrapping him in the cold embrace of the night. The harsh realities of the world loomed ahead, and in that instant, he teetered on the edge of uncertainty, just as the Johnsons and the old man had done throughout their tumultuous lives. Then, from his vantage point, he caught a glimpse of freedom. The neighborhood laid out before him like an unwritten chapter, filled with the promise of laughter, warmth, and companionship. But just as quickly as the breeze of independence breathed life into him, he was met with a wall of memories. The cries of loneliness from long nights spent alone, the images of an old life that he couldn't quite escape. His heart pounded, a visceral reminder of his journey. The old man, seeing Buddy's hesitation, stepped forward, his intent simmering just beneath the surface. He whispered, vulnerability etched deeply in his voice. "I'm not here to take you away." The boy, with a heart full of empathy, felt a mix of emotions collide within him. One part of him wanted to rush out and clutch Buddy, ensuring he remained safe from the world. Another part, influenced by a newfound understanding of shared love, recognized the old man's sorrow, deep and genuine. More than just a pet, Buddy had become a symbol of resilience, a bridge between the lives of these three, each carrying their own weight of pain. In that moment, the connection formed between Buddy and the boy deepened. The boy rushed toward the door, determined to bring Buddy back inside. He called out, "Come here, Buddy." His innocent voice resonated throughout the cold night, only reinforced by the childlike belief that love could conquer fear. Buddy, hearing the soft call of his name, hesitated again, looking between the old man and the family. The tug-of-war within him mirrored the complexities of human emotions, a dance of fear, hope, and love that is rarely straightforward. In times of stress, individuals often look to others for cues on how to act. The Johnson family's collective anxiety intertwined with Buddy's decision-making, pulling him in multiple directions at once. Yet in a striking display of instinct, Buddy chose to turn back. Slowly, he retraced his steps, hesitantly padding toward the family. Each cautious footfall resonated with a rhythm of hope, each breath a silent prayer that this escape from chaos would lead to sanctuary, the warm embrace of connection rather than the bitter chill of the unfamiliar. The moment Buddy crossed the threshold, it felt as though the very fabric of their lives shifted. The boy knelt down, arms open wide, and Buddy, as though guided by some unseen force, rushed forward. They embraced, two hearts pulsing synchronously in the midst of a world often driven by neglect and pain. But the turmoil was far from over. The old man's face illuminated with both relief and heartbreak as he witnessed the reunion before him. "I don't want to come between you," he murmured, realization washing over him like rain on a parched ground. I thought I was trying to save him, but he needs you now." In that tender moment, the walls around their hearts began to dissolve. As they built a bridge of understanding, the old man began to open up about his own life, a life filled with struggles he had once seen as insurmountable. He spoke candidly about the difficulties he endured after losing his job, how darkness clouded his mind, and how it seemed easier to step back than to fight for what mattered most. The family listened, listening not as adversaries, but as empathetic companions walking through life's storms together. This was no longer just a tale about a dog. It metamorphosed into a narrative about human perseverance, shared pain, and the connections formed through hardship. Research in psychology reveals that people are often moved by narratives of struggle, and the connection forged in vulnerability can drive deeper understanding. Their stories intermingled. What once seemed like two isolated lives began to weave together, creating a fabric rich with insights and compassion. As they shared stories, little victories, losses, lessons learned, the storms of the outside world faded. The connection they formed was transformative. The boy's gentle presence comforted the old man, while the old man shared tales about the adventures he had with Buddy, painting a vivid picture of celebration amid the struggles that had previously divided them. In a powerful display of emotions, Buddy nestled comfortably between the boy and the old man, a physical representation of their burgeoning unity. It was no longer a matter of ownership. It had evolved into a shared responsibility that incorporated every heart beating in that room. Buddy's presence transformed into a bond, a symbol of hope, resilience, and shared purpose. But just as this fragile balance began to settle into a comforting rhythm, the night once again brought with it the gusts of uncertainty. The old man's phone buzzed abruptly, loud against the backdrop of reflective silence. The weight of this pronouncement hung heavily in the air, snapping their moment of introspection. For the old man, the implications were disastrous. It marked not just a potential end for his residence, but a profound loss that could echo through his existence. This time, it wasn't just about Buddy. It was about the survival of a bond that had only begun to take shape, the father asked, concern etching itself across his forehead. It became clear that the intersection of their lives was now a race against time, one that required rapid negotiations to support a kind of hope that felt so delicate. The old man stood rooted, the enormity of his circumstances crashing down around him. "I don't know," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "The last thing I want is to pull Buddy into my chaos." In that moment of desperation, the boy tugged gently at the old man's sleeve, his innocent eyes brimming with understanding. "You shouldn't have to do it alone," he said. The sincerity behind his words, unadulterated and raw, exposed the innocence in his heart. As young as he was, he understood that love could conquer despair. It was a statement so profound, it cascaded through the room, igniting flickers of hope against the formidable odds arrayed before them. The weight of responsibility shifted once again. This was not just about losing a home or a pet, but a weaver of friendship and solidarity that could galvanize them all. They looked at Buddy, who understood instinctually that his existence catalyzed this shared experience. As he nestled between them, they wrapped their arms around him, a physical embodiment of the commitment they were forging, a united front, willing to create not only possibilities for Buddy's future, but for the old man's life as well. "Let's figure this out together," the mother urged, her voice enveloping them in its warmth. "We can work as a team." Together, they began to chart paths forward, planning meetings, brainstorming ideas, and pooling resources. They reached out to their community, forging connections that would extend far beyond their immediate circle. Information was shared, actions coordinated, and voices combined to create ripples of support, shifting their individual struggles into collective action. As the storm clouds began to part outside, a new dawn awakened. The old man found himself surrounded by compassion, drawn from the very people he had feared would take away the last piece of what he had left. They exchanged contact details, solidifying the promise to navigate life's complexities together, a family brought together by the shared love of one dog. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, the relationship strengthened. Buddy thrived under the care of both the Johnsons and his original owner. Many afternoons were spent together, sharing laughter, adventures, and stories that intertwined. creating a vibrant tapestry woven with joy and resilience. Yet the journey was not without its trials. Each encounter brushed against the struggles of living in an unpredictable world. There were moments of tension, moments of doubt, and difficult discussions about boundaries when faced with the sheer weight of responsibility shared among them. But amidst the noise, they held tight to the bond that had first brought them together, a love expansive enough to encompass all the tribulations that life threw at them. As the sun dipped below the horizon one evening, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, they gathered on the porch together, gazing out at a future filled with the promise of friendship. They had transformed something so tragic into a testament of healing, reflecting how the heart can indeed find its way home. Even amidst adversity, Buddy lay at their feet, a symbol of every step they had taken together, comforting them all as they quietly embraced their future, each heartbeat echoing the promise of connection and resilience they had forged against all odds. But in that tranquil moment, just as hope shimmered above them, the doorbell rang once more, filling the air with anticipation. Who could be at the door now? What other piece of fate would knock on this family's doorstep, waiting to redefine their future yet again? It was another layer of the unknown, lurking just beyond the frame, tantalizingly close, yearning to unfold. What makes us reach out for help when we're at our most vulnerable? Sometimes it's the simplest plea, a soft whimper, an earnest look, or a gentle nudge. When that desperate call at your door stems from a creature as innocent as a dog, well, it pulls at the very core of what it means to be human. As the Johnson family stood startled, they felt that pull, a shared sentinel to the unexpected saga unfolding before them. In the blink of an eye, the family's world shifted as they absorbed the complexity of the situation. A scruffy dog with ragged fur and pleading eyes was at their doorstep, a beacon of vulnerability in the midst of their cozy home. The Johnsons, unaware of the symbolic journey they were about to embark on together, stood frozen, each of their hearts a drum echoing the joy and concern that collided in the air. Yet, in the swirl of emotion surrounding them, they had one undeniable question: how could this simple encounter reshape their lives forever? The boy of the family, with wide, innocent eyes, instinctively took a step forward, drawn to the uncertain creature. His sister gripped his arm, expressing the protective instinct of youth, but curiosity and compassion battled fiercely within him. That quintessential duality, fear against hope, was mirrored in Buddy, the beleaguered dog. 5 million shelter dogs are euthanized each year simply because they are unwanted. Yet here he was, a living contradiction to the desolate fate waiting in the shadows of society. As seconds stretched into eternities, the dog's tail began to wag ever so slightly, uncertainty still flickering beneath the surface, but with a hopeful glint waltzing alongside. Social psychologists emphasize the importance of nonverbal cues, illustrating how body language can convey emotions more authentically than words ever could. In this moment, the fragile barrier between fear and trust began to dissolve, and as the boy extended his hand, the dog inched forward, compelled by an instinct older than time itself, the innate need for connection. Moments later, that connection came alive. The boy knelt and allowed Buddy to sniff his hand, letting the dog dictate the pace of their initial meeting. When Buddy hesitated, the family held their collective breath. It felt as if the world outside faded, leaving only this pivotal moment of trust filling the air with suspense. The simple act of extending a hand encapsulated the essence of fostering compassion. Buddy, just as wary as he was hopeful, finally took a step toward the family, each paw pressing against the wooden porch, like a hesitant child on his first day of school. It mirrored the earlier emotions of the family, leaving them contemplating their own leaps of faith, the potential for both joy and disappointment, hovering like mist. But then, just as the whispers of hope swirled in the air, reality slammed against them. Buddy, startled by loud thunder cracking in the distance, shuddered and darted back, crashing into the old wooden railing and sending splinters flying. This momentary chaos was a reminder of the fragile balance within their own lives. A profound question loomed. What could possess anyone or any creature to risk everything just to ask for help, only to be met with fear and turmoil? It was a metaphor steeped in life. Sometimes our greatest fears keep us from reaching out, especially in moments of vulnerability. Yet, when we do take that risk, the rewards can be life-altering. In fact, research in social psychology highlights the approach avoidance conflict, where individuals often vacillate between the desire to achieve something meaningful and the fear that comes with taking that leap. It was precisely that dance of feelings unfolding in the hearts of the Johnson family, pulsing through each moment they spent with Buddy. Watching him attempt to regain composure, the family instinctively rallied around him, hoping to create a safe space where healing could begin. The father bent down and softly spoke, "It's okay, Buddy." His tone resonated with sincerity, a powerful reminder that understanding often begins with vulnerability. For Buddy, who had already faced abandonment and fear, it was another opportunity to embrace the warmth of compassion and connection. Soon after, Buddy cautiously approached again, but this time, the boy cleverly dropped a chunk of his snack, a small sacrifice for a potential friendship. It felt like the first step in a long journey, a tender offering sparking connection through shared experiences, however tiny. In one quick motion, Buddy snatched the treat and stepped back, his whole demeanor shifting, displaying the remnants of skepticism all but washed away. Without question, the family had made an emotional impact on Buddy, but little did they know that they were in turn being transformed. They recognized that right there, between a snack, a bark, and an outstretched hand, lay the essence of compassion, moving beyond our trepidations to embrace the unknown. With each passing moment, Buddy began to relax, welcome into a newfound family. It was then the mother placed a hand on the boy's back, glancing at him with a glimmer of support. She asked with a soft smile that spread warmth throughout the team gathering around them. The boy nodded ferociously, already envisioning countless adventures together. In this swirling mess of uncertainty, the family could grasp the steroids of shared affection blossoming between them and the dog, each step amplifying the notion of community, interdependence, and belonging. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew like roots of a sturdy tree. Each time the boy took Buddy for walks, he would narrate tales of grand adventures to come, the fleeting thoughts of evolution from a scruffy stray into a beloved family dog. It was heartwarming to witness them together. Buddy, once riddled with fear, now began to exude an air of confidence. There's an age-old saying that dogs reflect the lives of their owners, filled with joy, affection, and unspoken loyalty. It was as if, with his return to the world, Buddy was awakening each family member to their own potential for love and kindness. The boy, inspired by Buddy's comeback story, began to nurture empathy in his own life, seeking to engage with those around him in ways that recognized the struggles they all faced. Yet, as with any tale of growth, shadows lurked on the fringe. Reality was poised to reshape their story once more. One fateful afternoon, when the skies darkened ominously and the air buzzed with tension, the doorbell chimed once again, cutting their afternoon of companionship short. Standing at the door was a weathered figure, one that momentarily sent a shiver coursing through the atmosphere of the cozy abode. The boy peered up to see the old man, the very same person whose life had intertwined with Buddy's in a precarious dance of a lost past. It was the man who had cared for him before they found each other. Time froze. What moved through the family, a mixture of intrigue and apprehension, was palpable. The air felt electric. Fear washed over them like the oncoming storm, bringing uncertainty along with it. Would the old man want Buddy back? Would he take away their newfound friend and rip apart the bonds they had forged? The world had become so much brighter with Buddy, they were not ready to let go. The old man asked, gauging their reaction with cautious sincerity. In that moment, everything about the encounter hung delicately in the air. The boy's heart raced, a flood of emotions threatening to spill over, as the echoes of shared connections and fragile trust danced in the corners of his mind. The old man stepped forward, despair etched in his features. "I have looked everywhere for him," he confessed, voice trembling. "I was heartbroken when he disappeared, and I'm struggling to find my way back. But seeing him here, As admission, a heartbreaking revelation revealed the layers of his journey, exposing raw regrets and yearning for reconciliation. The family stood in silence, wrangling with their own feelings. This was not just about reclaiming a lost pet. It was about navigating the tangled web of human emotions spun from unconditional love, grief, and the redemptive power of community. As the storm brewed outside, the intricate dance of emotions intensified within that room. Each heartbeat echoed a profound truth. The old man had been dealing with his demons, battling hardships that had driven him to a place of isolation. Now he longed for connection, acceptance, and most importantly, forgiveness. In that pivotal moment, the boy's innocent search for belonging and justice broke the stillness of the room. "You can visit Buddy whenever you want," he offered, eyes shining with compassion beyond his years. "We've helped him find happiness again, but you can be a part of his life too." Time hung heavily in the air, the weight of bravery permeating every conversation. The mother's warmth radiated across the threshold, drawing the old man closer into the circle of understanding built upon shared experiences. She extended her hand, inviting him into the home they had collectively formed. She had come to realize that love thrives when shared, not hoarded. As the moment unfolded, each family member began to process what it meant to weave their lives together. Resilience grew amidst their struggle, blossoming into understanding. They could do this together, granting Buddy the loving family he truly deserved while also extending kindness to one who had wrestled with life's challenges. Slowly, the storm clouds began to lift, and awareness illuminated the room. It was their choice to build bridges, cultivate compassion, and embrace one another with open hearts. The old man, tentatively stepping forward, felt the warmth of connection unfold, a chance to heal not only chosen wounds, but also those inflicted unintentionally. They sat together, Buddy nestled happily at the center of this intricate web, an emblem of shared journeys, a reminder of the importance of vulnerability, and the significance of stepping out into the unknown. Together, they entered an unprecedented era of collaboration and trust, reminding one another that it is indeed possible to carve out connection and joy, even through the unlikeliest of doors. Yet, just as they began to communicate about what the future might hold, a new chapter woven with unity and friendship, the doorbell chimed once more, echoing ominously throughout the house. The question loomed larger than life. Could another surprise await them on this remarkable journey? What other connections were about to unfold, and how might they continue to navigate this delicate dance of healing built on empathy? What happens when an act of kindness binds souls in ways we never expect? Sometimes in the midst of our ordinary lives, a single event, a moment so remarkable and laden with significance, can unveil threads of connection that redefine everything we thought we knew. In our story, a scruffy dog at a family's door has already shifted the balance of the Johnson family's existence. But what lay ahead was poised to deepen the bond and challenge their understanding of loyalty, love, and sacrifice. As Buddy, the scruffy dog, settled into the Johnson household, a palpable change enveloped the family. The boy, whose hands trembled slightly as he reached out to rescue the forlorn creature, began reflecting on the nature of courage. Courage isn't just a loud declaration. Sometimes it's the tender whisper that rekindles hearts and rejuvenates spirits. Buddy, who once trembled under the weight of loneliness, now stood as a living testament to resilience, a symbol of recovery not just for himself, but for the entire family. With each passing day, the family witnessed Buddy transition from a wary figure shrouded in past trauma to a joyous, spirited companion. They marveled at the way he would dive into their home, playing tug-of-war with scarves, eagerly awaiting scraps during dinner, and curling up next to them at the end of long days. Buddy was no longer the frail creature left abandoned. He was morphing into a beacon of affection, reflecting the love that surrounded him. Yet an element beyond joy lingered in the air, an enigmatic shadow whispering of challenges yet to come. The family may have believed they had rescued Buddy, but deep down, they felt the weight of an unresolved connection looming at the doorstep, an almost magnetic pull urging them to explore what lay beneath the surface. Perhaps it was the loneliness of the rain-soaked nights that left them wondering. They could feel it ebbing through the walls, leaving behind unanswered questions and unacknowledged fears. Then, one bright afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the windows, a rapping at the door shattered their newfound serenity. Hesitation reigned among the Johnsons, hearts thumping as they exchanged uncertain glances. Was it a friend, a neighbor, or something altogether different? They shared a glance that communicated the fear of change, and yet spoke of an adventurous curiosity that had been awakened by Buddy's presence. When they finally opened the door, the old man appeared. He stood as a figure of nostalgia, eyes tracing the contours of a familiar dog. At that moment, everything felt suspended, as though time had decided to hold its breath, awaiting a decision that could unravel or fortify their reality. The dog's reaction was instant. His enthusiasm faltered, curiosity replaced by the shadows of his past. Those is the subtleties of nonverbal communication, which social psychologists explain can act as an emotional revelation. Buddy stood there, caught between two worlds, the family that offered him safety and the figure from whom he had once fled. The old man's voice cracked as he spoke. I'm sorry to intrude." A chorus of emotions surged in the room. Guilt, concern, and an unexpected fury ricocheted around the family. They had poured love and effort into nurturing Buddy back to feeling whole, but now they sensed an intrusion into that fragile rebirth. Their home felt like a sanctuary, and this man, his unknown past shadowing both his intentions and Buddy's former life, had the potential to break that peace. The boy piped up, eyes sifting through confusion and protectiveness. He cast a glance up at his parents, unsure how to wield the authority that instinct told him to defend. The boy's fervent question rippled with apprehension, the fear that a single answer could change their lives once more. They had ventured into an uncharted territory of attachment, only to find themselves at the brink of losing it all. "I'm his previous owner," the old man replied, sorrow stitching his words. "I didn't want to abandon him. Life, it happened. I lost my job, my home. I thought he'd be better off in a shelter." In that moment, layers of empathy melted into the fray. The family witnessed wounds mirroring their own, a reminder that pain often ignites the flame of survival, but compassion is what allows it to flicker into the light. Suddenly, the dynamic in the room shifted, becoming more complex, laden with truth and burdened by its weight. The old man wasn't just a hindrance. He was a reflection of the sacrifices we all grapple with when faced with overwhelming circumstances. Not too different from Buddy, it seemed they were all searching for a path back to compassion. He, a father seeking redemption in his son's eyes, and they, a family seeking connection in a world rapidly evolving around them. For all his initial hesitance, Buddy stepped forward, nose twitching as he reached for the man, as if to confirm that their past wasn't completely severed. For him, the line between love and loss blurred. This was more than just a reunion or a confrontation. It was an intersection of memories and longing that stirred within each heart present. In the next breath, the boy, feeling an unshakable sense of justice ignite within him, stepped between Buddy and the old man, as if to protect the fragile embrace that had been cultivated. "He's happy now." Each word poured from the boy's heart with an urgency that shook the very foundations of their reality. Nobody ever prepares you to play the role of a defender, but in this chaotic moment, he felt the weight of that mantle resting squarely on his small shoulders. Though the tension hung thick in the air, self-awareness loomed on the horizon, a sense of understanding rising with every breath taken. This interaction did more than threaten their new world. It set the stage for healing on multiple fronts. Buddy's eyes darted between the two, as if he could feel the tumult swirling around them, a silent ambassador caught between his past and present. And so the discussion unfolded. The old man shared stories about Buddy's early days, tales of fetch in wide-open fields, comforting hugs at sunsets, and how he once found solace in the warmth of companionship. With each memory, the family felt a wave of affection collide with pangs of sadness, wrestling to manage the seemingly endless paradox revealing itself before them. Research has shown that the act of storytelling has the extraordinary ability to foster connection and build empathy, transcending the barriers established by fear and misunderstanding. As the old man reminisced, time began to stretch. The story sparked an array of emotions. The flood of joy became bittersweet, and compassion began to bridge the gaps between what was lost and what could be reclaimed. It was as if Buddy's presence encapsulated their shared emotions, his wagging tail pleading with them to find common ground. Observing him, the family could see how connections might transcend their immediate fears, transforming the heart-rending conundrum of ownership into something altogether greater, a shared responsibility for love. The mother stepped forward, imbued with tenderness, a voice that resonated with understanding. "It seems like you've both been through so much. Is it possible for Buddy to have two families?" In one simple question, she opened the door to possibilities, each heart in the room carrying the weight of hope. The old man, caught by surprise, hesitated, perhaps unsure how to respond to such a heartfelt inquiry. Could it be? Could the space shared with Buddy yield to inclusiveness instead of division? For all that had passed between them, here lay an opportunity for grace, a chance for redemption and forgiveness. As he searched the depths of his own soul, battling the demons of regret and despair, he began to smile. He deserves to be loved, no matter where it comes from. If he's happy with you, that may be enough for me. A powerful admission. In that moment, they came to recognize the profound truth that nurturing care isn't confined to one's address. Love is a bond, adaptable and resilient, reshaping itself as it flows from one heart to another. A breakthrough had occurred, swathed in vulnerability and departing from a life of solitude. As they discussed Buddy's future, a shared existence filled with visiting afternoons, joint adventures, and the shared responsibility of love, the foundation of their bond anchored itself more deeply. The spirals of past pain now intermingled with newfound hope, going beyond mere possession and blossoming into a family that embraced the vast artistry of connection. Of course, hidden still within the shadows were remnants of skepticism. Intertwined histories didn't seamlessly vanish. The old man could be here today but might drift again. Indeed, the question of loyalty and love's permanence hung in the air like an unresolved mystery. What did such a bond mean in a world wrought with longing and uncertainty? And could a single dog truly bridge the gaps of two disparate lives? The flickering warmth of the fireplace set the stage for conversation, laughter, and comfort. But mingled within that ease, a thread of tension lingered, deeply rooted in the events that had brought Buddy into their lives. The lingering reverberations of their first encounter struck a dissonant chord of anxiety, filling the air with unspoken questions. Would Buddy remain in their lives? How did the old man, his original owner, truly feel about their newfound companionship? The family could clearly see, in retrospect, that the old man's sorrow was less about ownership and more a reflection of an aching heart desperately seeking reconciliation. The delicate balance between past relationships and new commitments rested precariously on their shoulders, and not a single soul could ignore the emotional weight that came with it. In the minutes that followed their intense exchange, the boy found himself racked with feelings he didn't quite understand. A cocktail of hope mixed with anxiety brewed. He feared losing Buddy, but was aware that the same compassion that drew him to the dog tugged at the truth buried in the old man's gaze. It was a complicated dance between love and fear, where social psychologists have noted that ambivalence often leads to internal conflict. The boy, caught in that whirlwind, felt as if he were navigating treacherous waters in hopes of keeping everyone afloat. Just then, Buddy's ears perked up, cutting across the silence of the room. He tilted his head, as if responding to a beckoning only he could hear. The old man, caught off guard by this unexpected attention, watched as the dog barreled across the room, skidding to a stop and gazing at him, eyes gleaming, tail wagging, like he was animated by something greater. It was almost as if Buddy sensed the emotional currents rippling through them all, the tension, the love, the yearning, and he wasn't ready to let any of it go. The mother, insightful as always, leaned closer to the old man, her voice filled with genuine curiosity. "What was it that made you want to come back?" she asked, probing into the deep well of emotion that had brought him to their doorstep again. The old man's brow furrowed as he collected his thoughts. "I thought giving him up would be the best thing for him. I genuinely believed I was doing the right thing. But every day since, it's felt like a piece of my heart was missing." His admission hung in the air, charged with the gravity of regret and longing. In psychology, this is often related to the concept of disenfranchised grief, the grief that occurs when a person experiences a loss that is not openly acknowledged or socially supported. The old man had experienced a profound loss that the world around him had failed to recognize. Living alone, he found solace in the memories of a time when his home was filled with love and companionship. Here's where an unexpected dynamic emerged. Through this shared vulnerability, the lines began to blur. Buddy was not just a dog to them anymore. He was a bridge connecting these lives. The boy began to see that Buddy had entered their family not merely to be saved, but to accelerate healing, not just for himself, but for every heart aching for connection. "Maybe we all need each other," the boy said softly, not only addressing the old man, but also reminding Buddy of the tangled web of love they now represented. The boy had somehow woven together empathy for both sides of this story, naturally drawing together the threads of shared sorrow and renewed hope. The old man's gaze softened. He recognized the truth in those young words. People often underestimate the depth of understanding children possess. Their hearts remain open, unshackled from the cynicism that adulthood often brings. In that moment, the boy became a catalyst for something transformative, not just for himself, but for the man who had relinquished Buddy. This bond was moving in a way that challenged everything they thought they knew about loyalty, sacrifice, and what constitutes a family. As the conversation swirled around them, the air thick with possibilities, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Buddy, having made his decision, broke away from the human circle and retreated to the corner of the room, staring quizzically at a spot in the shadows. The family watched with rapt attention, curiosity mingling with surprise. It was as if Buddy was attuned to something unseen, something that whispered of new beginnings and untold stories. Then, as if cut from a different cloth, he approached the back door, emitting a low growl, as if sensing a presence lurking just beyond the threshold. Tension returned instantly, sweeping through the room. Was it instinct, or was it something more? The old man tilted his head, looking hopeful yet apprehensive, recalling the storms they had weathered. Inside, memories flooded back, the nights growing cold and dreadful with the sound of unsettled winds, the very forces that had once frightened Buddy into the safety of the world beyond. What could possibly be lurking outside that could disrupt the sanctuary unfolding within these four walls? It was hard to say. Suddenly, the door swung open, perhaps against better judgment, and a flood of light poured into the room, casting everything in stark relief. There, at the threshold, stood a small girl, no older than 7, with a heart-shaped face, wide eyes brimming with innocence. In her hands, she clutched a worn teddy bear tightly, as if it was the last bastion of childhood comfort. She croaked, her voice ringing out like a bell that cut through layers of uncertainty. It was a question and a plea all at once. The family froze. The boy's heart raced. This wasn't just an interloper. She was part of the larger fabric of this swirling narrative. The old man, slightly bewildered, took a step forward. He asked gently. It was a simple question, but the magnitude of its implications fell heavy between them, acknowledging the fragile intersections where lives converge. "My name is Lily," she replied, her eyes shimmering with childlike wonder. "I saw Buddy when he was lost. He was scared. I used to feed him cookies when my dad wasn't looking. I wanted to help, but I was too small. I thought, maybe." A powerful silence enveloped the room, reverberating with emotion. Buddy, who had previously been on high alert, was now dancing around Lily, wagging his tail as if the two souls shared a secret only they could understand. In that moment, every ounce of anxiety dissipated. The man, the family, and this small girl found themselves swept away by a current of shared love, a current powerful enough to defy time and space. The mother leaned down, her eyes softening as she met Lily's gaze. "Buddy is safe here now, sweetheart." Her words dripped with compassion, creating a nurturing warmth that blanketed the room anew. Lily's face brightened, the shadows lifting. "Can I come in? Can I see him?" It was a plea that mirrored the yearnings of the human heart, an appeal for connection, validation, and belonging. It called to the shared humanity that tied them all together. With a warm smile, the mother beckoned Lily inside, and in that small act of inclusion lay a giant leap toward building community. The old man watched as Lily rushed into the living room, her laughter cascading like sunlight spilling through the clouds. "Oh, buddy," she squealed, delighted and enchanted. It was as if the walls that had initially segregated their experiences began to dissolve, the old man's past, the Johnson family's present, and Lily's longing intertwining like branches reaching for sunlight. Buddy bounded toward her with uncontainable energy, showering her with affectionate licks, and in that joyous union, they forged a bond that transcended age, loss, and uncertainty. As laughter filled the room, social psychologists often speak of the paradox of sharing in human relationships. The more we give, the greater connection we cultivate. What had started as a hesitant connection now blossomed into a network of love and support, cascading through each voice and paw in the room. Yet like all stories, beneath the surface flowed the deeper narrative of how interconnectedness ultimately depends on trust. The old man, witnessing the exchange, felt his heart swell and his defenses drop. At that moment, he could no longer see himself as merely an interloper. He had become part of this mosaic of humanity, a testament to resilience and healing. But even if the tide of belonging swelled around them, an unease lurked in the recesses of their amalgamated heart. The family had recognized the urgency of showing loyalty to their beloved buddy. But would bonding with new faces jolt their commitment to one another? And how would their paths intertwine moving forward, particularly for the old man who had wandered back with the burden of loss? Before fear could anchor itself too solidly in their hearts, the boy suddenly stood, resolute. He proposed, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. "Buddy could meet you, Lily, and you can feed him all sorts of cookies." In that moment, as he turned back to the adults surrounding him, a boldness ignited that echoed the legacy of hope, the hope that perhaps love wasn't meant to be confined to mere segments of existence. Maybe it could stretch, shift, and bend to embrace the hearts willing to give and receive. This proposal, infused with innocent optimism, reverberated through the room with surprising intensity. For the old man, it was a lifeline, an opportunity to reclaim his own humanity. For the Johnsons, it represented an awakening, their family expanding, creating space in their hearts for new bonds, shared laughter, and a wider community. Images danced in their minds, days filled with joy, puppy romps and picnics in the park, where boundaries faded and every soul was woven into the fabric of connection. As laughter echoed around Buddy and little Lily, they each felt a stirring of something extraordinary, the power of shared experiences to regenerate hope, to heal wounds unseen. And yet, just as the prospect of a new adventure settled comfortably into their hearts, an unexpected truth simmered on the horizon, waiting to be unearthed. In the land of open doors, what other stories lingered on the fringes? What other lives weaved in and out, waiting patiently for the moment when they'd knock, asking for help or companionship, each person an integral piece of a puzzle they knew not yet existed. Little did they realize that their journey was not only about finding Buddy, but about the multitude of lives intertwining in complex and beautiful ways, a web of love waiting to unfurl. A dog asking for help would be the catalyst for profound connections, both expected and unexpected, whether or not they were ready. The night settled around them as the stars blanketed the sky, each twinkle reflecting the stories yet to unfold. What lay ahead promised adventure, confrontation, and explorations that would rock the very foundation of their understanding. And as the laughter surged, it solidified the understanding that they had embarked on a journey so much deeper than mere rescue. This was a commitment to one another, family forged by heart and spirit, filled with gritty love and unending possibilities. In that moment, they stood united, ready to face whatever awaited them beyond the door, knowing that every story told would matter, every heart would find solace. And together, they would navigate the intricate tapestry of connection that life continually wove. The echoes of laughter could resonate through time, bonding souls into something grander. As they sat on the cusp of transformation, the question loomed ever larger. What would this new adventure hold, and how would it reverberate into the world, impacting not just them, but everyone they encountered? In the quiet of the evening, with souls intertwined by shared love, every heartbeat a resonant promise that tomorrow would unveil untold possibilities waiting just beyond the door.